So Garmin says I should be doing a recovery run, which I agree. It's been a tough week. A very successful one though, including in weights and running. Like I said, I've been doing a little better every time. So let's go ahead and get started. Click. Okay, we start. I don't want to run, but it is the end of my week. The runs, I've actually been doing pretty good. I've done 2 13-mile runs, Calvary Loop as usual. I didn't have any other choice but to run down. Nevertheless, I don't feel like running any further, but that's exactly why I thought, you know what, why don't we go out here to the beach, do a little beach run. So today, in order to remain true to my goal of taking it easy on this run, I try to keep myself around the 10-minute mark. Let's see how well I hold on to it. Currently, I'm doing 11 minutes. It's even slower. Well, I shouldn't worry too much. The more important point though right now, as a matter of fact, is just take it easy, make this a nice slow run, and resist the urge to cry from all the shame that I feel I'm running so slow. I know, it sounds silly to you. Why would anyone feel ashamed? And yet, if you've been with me for more than one run, you know that is what keeps me from slowing down. So, that and a host of other little things, but I think that's the one that drives me. For example, when I go slow, and then we start to feel like I'm going to spend the rest of the day on the run. You know, it's not, I can rationally calculate that, no, it's not going to take me 10 hours to do this run. The thing is, you know how hunger, when you're hungry for something, and you go, mind over matter, just realize you don't need to be eating so much. Yeah, right. And a little hunger, the urge is there, needling you all the time. It's not even really hard urge, it's just needling you. Ding, 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 ding. And you underestimate just how powerful it can be across time. That's what really makes it powerful. We underestimate because at the moment, a little hunger urge doesn't feel overwhelming. It just feels like, a little urge to eat. But it's there and persistent. And as it persists, at some point you're distracted, you down some snacks. And then at some other point, again, the urge wasn't even so strong. The thing is, the urge doesn't work by itself. That's what I was going to say. The urge works in cahoots with many other strategies in your brain, including the fact that many of us, when we overeat, I know it happens to me, we're not even aware. We can't even recall what we ate in the last 24 hours. Well, now I can, but I've become obsessive with that. But we just can't. We forgot, what did I eat? I was eating, this whole distracted eating is a major problem for many of us. It's not the only one. That's why some people will be like, well, no, I don't do that. There's many, many other ways that you're hippocampus, like your lizard brain actually, your lizard brain doesn't end around your logic. That little urge, in other words, that little urge of hunger isn't the only thing there. Many more things, and it recruits them. Like I said, at points, you may just feel, just a little bit hungry. But then, at some other point, you might be like, well, but you also have to resist. I guess at some point you'll be like, it doesn't matter. So your resistance, first of all, if it wasn't very high, because sometimes you're not going to treat it like the most. As a matter of fact, the very fact that you try to be nonchalant means that your resistance isn't going to be that high. So when it happens, you get a little slightly stronger urge to snack on something. Boom, your resistance goes down by like 10%. And as I said, you sneak a meal. And all of a sudden, I didn't even notice that I ate that trail mix. This trail mix is one of my weaknesses now. And why? Because it's nuts. All kinds of nuts, which are considered healthy. But it's mixed in with raisins and M&Ms. And of course, that practically makes it a candy. In my case, with that urge, I would get very healthy cashews and walnuts and stuff. Mix it up with peanut butter cups and M&Ms. Not too many. As a matter of fact, I did a calculation of the carb and sugar counts, and they weren't that bad. So as far as snacks go, that is a better way to do it than just eating candy. Yes. Of course, when your little persistent sense of hunger is there constantly pushing, anything becomes fair game. So little by little, I just started to make it more of a habit to grab handfuls of trail mix. Now let's not forget, trail mix was originally, or at least so the legend goes, invented by hikers as a calorie-dense food. So it doesn't take that many handfuls to get to 1,000 calories. So I decided to stop buying trail mix. And trust me, there's a little piece of my heart and soul that died when I stopped buying it. I still sit up and look in my cupboard for it. I miss it. That just goes to show you that little persistent habits can be quite powerful. And you don't want to underestimate them. Similarly, the feeling that I described while going slow, it's not an overwhelming, like sometimes it does. Actually, there's times when it'll get so bad that it'll make me cry. I've cried in a couple of these videos, you'll see. Of course, crying is especially for a guy, is an interesting subject. I think we haven't really covered enough. And that is that, especially for those of us who grew up in traditional cultures, where crying was heavily discouraged. Most of us will tend not to cry. I know I'm one of those. Such that, especially for those of us in that world, but even for most adults, crying is usually okay. I'm sure many of you, especially those of you who are younger, probably already knew that. I think it's more me trying to convince myself to every once in a while just let it go. Just cry. As I said, more for me. I think that for most of you who probably...
Lap 1, 10:30, heart rate 122, average pace 10:31.
There we go. 10:30. That's a good pace. So, and I say this because we'll touch on the whole crying thing in a bit, but I think it's good. And because when you would see me crying out of shame, most of the time, this was not see, I will qualify. This is something that I've told my students. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my mind, I think crying, especially when it's like a relief valve for tension, can be quite useful. But just as long as it's a relief valve, like think about it like a relief valve on a water heater. Water heater, when the pressure builds too high, the valve will explode and release a little bit of water. But it doesn't release everything, only enough so that the situation doesn't get dangerous. And once the pressure returns to operational limits, the valve closes. And that's in one sense where I think crying can be good. If things just get too overwhelming, then cry it up a bit. But just like the relief valve, there's going to be a point where the catharsis, the relief, should be enough. Now, I'm describing complex things because sometimes perhaps you're completely broken. Okay, well, but at least with most folks that I've worked with, it's not that they are completely broken. Just like I said, at the moment they're overwhelmed. And so you cry, and that releases some pressure. And then you get back to what you were doing. That's my point. In that case, it's a very functional and useful strategy. Doesn't mean I would disagree with other times that you'd cry. Remember, I told you I'm older. Grew up in a world where crying was seen as bad. So it's going to take a little more work for me to accept other times. But I believe that one is quite useful. I say this again because there are times in our lives when exactly that happens. When shit happens. And we have to let a little steam off and then get back to what we were doing. And I say that regarding when I run slow. And if I do feel a great sense of shame, and if it even makes me cry, fine, cry. Release some of that pressure. But then, get back to what you were doing. Get back to doing the slow run. And remember, just like I learned how to handle the pain of a run, and running is very painful, I'm sure I could learn to handle the shame of a slow run, especially if over the long term it makes me a faster and better runner, which is exactly what I want. It's just that my instinct, the one that pushes me to run too fast, it, much like a Terminator, cannot be reasoned with. I cannot tell it that running slow helps me. It will not give up, ever. So, in that case, the only thing you do is teach it the same way you teach all of your basic muscle memory skills. That is, just keep doing it. And in time, you didn't reason with it, you just taught it to accept a new reality. That's always a good thing. Nevertheless, like many urges that you were born with, it will never entirely disappear. So the shame will almost certainly always remain, just like the pain of running has never gone away. It hurts right now. Despite the fact that I'm running like a turtle. That's from an old Bugs Bunny cartoon. I don't know. Do people still know about Bugs Bunny? Yeah. So. I think the weirdest thing seems to people is because for many people, running slow seems easier than running fast. And I believe it. Some people probably do find it easier to run slow. Because we're all different. We have different motivators. There may be some elite marathoners that run slow. Each of us adapts to our own psychology and biomechanics. This is why the advice that works for me will work for some folks, but it will fail completely for others. No such thing as one size fits all. Getting closer. Barely visible. So, what I actually wanted to talk about was an interesting observation I've made. Actually, it's one that I've had for many, many years. But I've seen it connected
Lab 2, 1017. Heart rate 125. Average pace 1025.
in many different realms. And time and again, it shows up as an important problem. That is how we as humans, how good we are at processing and refining things far beyond what is healthy or useful. I say that because in the morning I was drinking my coffee and I realized that, coffee is one of the drugs that is most often used in the world. It is by far the most used, as a matter of fact. But most of us, of course, simply consume it as coffee. And what I meant to say is, as a drug, the drug is actually caffeine. And caffeine in the plant itself is not much of a problem. But over time, we refined it, extracted the primary alkaloid, caffeine itself, and now we sell it in pills. Well, that wasn't enough. Now we mix it with ephedrine, with taurine, and with other things, and suddenly people are dying. Every time we refine these things by itself, coffee, which is a low refinement compared to all the other things, coffee itself is relatively benign. As a matter of fact, it's kind of healthy. What little stress it puts on your system is almost like exercise. And similarly, cocaine. Now, each compound that I'm going to describe becomes dangerous in different ways, and some of them, like caffeine itself, although it is by itself, it almost never achieves the kind of potency. So it gets refined like crazy, but it reaches its upper limit. There's other things, like I said, like cocaine, that, as we refined it, became more and more powerful. But in its original form, the leaves that it comes from, they were okay. They weren't much different from coffee. As a matter of fact, people still drink coca tea. No. Not here, because too many people try to refine it. I guess. But it's still, we refine the hell out of it. We mix it in with solvents that make it even more powerful, allowing us to extract and direct it. Even the vehicle in which we introduce it, we look for more effective ways of introducing it, whether it's by smoking or by injection. It's not enough to snort it. We get better and better, and it gets more and more toxic and destructive. And you might be like, well, those are obvious examples, duh. Well, What about sugar? Think about just a few hundred years ago. Sugar was damn hard to get in a bag. It was damn hard and it was expensive. Really, only people with a lot of money could afford to have bags of sugar. Its processing was very, and still is, very labor intensive. But as a society, a capitalist society, we have applied our brains and figured out how to make its processing so much more efficient. And so now, rather than being more expensive than meat, it was as cheap as dirt. And now it is pure. We've literally turned it and refined it about as far as we can. Of course, by itself, once again, similar to caffeine, but it's not going to kill you. We already know this problem isn't in the spoonfuls that you will take. As a matter of fact, the spoonfuls you will consume will actually just taste awful. Too much sugar, which is also why there used to be an idea that I used to think that, you just add more sugar to everything and that makes it worse. Well, not really. And I should have thought about that a long time ago. No, because you can always add too much. So similar to caffeine, sugar has its limits, but the other problem though is, even though it has its limits, we make up for it in a way similar to caffeine by consuming it across time. We're not going to take a boatload of it, none of that, but we find new ways of consuming more of it. For example, one thing most folks don't know is that salt and sugar kind of blunt each other. They create a slightly different taste. What most folks don't realize is, because their effects on each other are blunted, we consume more. All of a sudden, we get more of the drug-like effects without the taste getting in the way. How's that for finding a way to shove more of that stuff down our throats? Have you ever tasted a warm soda? Soda tastes absolutely awful. For most of us, at least. It tastes absolutely awful when it's warm. That's because another property of sugar drinks is that when they're cooler, the colder they get, the less sensitive we are to the sweetness. You can taste this not just in sodas, but in Slurpees and ice cream. Ice cream has to be completely double down in sugar. But if you let it get warm, instead of ice cream, it's ice cream soup. Okay, try tasting it. It's going to taste absolutely awful. You're going to realize just what a crazy amount of sugar there is in it. I'm not even kidding. Go taste them. Taste the warm soda. Taste the warm ice cream. So, by making them colder, you're far more likely to consume nearly double the sugar you normally would, just because you don't sense it as much. And there's plenty of other tricks. The other one is similar to salt, is citric acid. or lemon. Lemon, ooh-wee. Once again, lemon will absolutely blunt the effect of sugar. We know this when we drink lemonade. And the sugar that we have to consume is absolutely just like, we don't even taste it, and we're already pouring like half a cup of sugar in our lemonade. It's only when we actually take the time to measure what we used.
Lap 3, 1044. Heart rate 122.
1044.
Average pace 1031.
Okay, good. It's only if we actually measure it that we realize, Jesus Christ, look at how much sugar that is. So the whole point, though, of what I'm saying is, we just find new ways.
Lap 4, 26. Heart rate 121. Average pace 1035.
Okay, that was the end of the recovery run. But as you know, we still run a few more miles. This is fun, but it's pretty dangerous. So, gotta keep looking behind me. I think I'm gonna stop. Hanging bars, those are some of my favorites. That one and this one over here, where you swing like Tarzan. Oh, and the rope. Yeah, see, you gotta know how to do it right. So my point is that there are so many things that we refine the hell out of. And this is actually an important puzzle piece to why we have so many health problems. Because we treat these things as if they were the natural source, you know? We treat caffeine and concentrated mixes of caffeine and other drugs as if they were very little different from coffee. When that's just not true. Remember, was it Galen who said, I'm not sure if it was Galen, but that name means hidden for some reason, who said the dose makes the poison. You know? So many things that in small amounts can be relatively benign, even healthy. And yet, once you refine them, once you make them the only thing, the other thing with coffee and caffeine is caffeine. It's not the only substance in coffee. Plenty of other things such that even if you have, say, a cup of Starbucks, which is what, like 200 milligrams of caffeine in a 16-ounce cup, I think. Okay. And you might be like, well, shouldn't that be equivalent to a 200 milligram pill? Well, I think it's the coffee by itself. No. All these dogs. Well, yeah, but the coffee itself, as I said, has more than just caffeine. It's got other substances in there, which will complicate the chemistry. Whereas in a pill, you don't get that. You get the unadulterated drug by itself. And that makes a big difference. Let's go back to the example of sugar. You know, an apple might have what, 15 grams of sugar. Yeah. Versus the 70s. It's got somebody with their ghetto blaster. Okay, well, that was good. Oh, yeah. Legitimate. Almost makes me want to catch up to him. No, I shouldn't be. I'm supposed to be taking it easy. I'm doing so well. Every day, sacrifice.
I want her.
Yeah. So, my point was, an orange, like I said, or an apple, 15 grams. Okay, fine. But, well, you know, that's half a can of Coke, right? Half a can of Coke is also, I think, about 15 grams of sugar too. Okay, they should be equivalent, right? Except when you eat it in the apple, you're eating something that, again, the chemistry gets complicated. It's not just sugar in there. There are a number of other very complex chemicals that are interacting with the sugar, slowing it down. Now, many of you already know this about glycemic index and stuff, but I want you to step back and reframe it from this more abstract view of how refined these things have a different property. Even if we measure them, like I said, milligram by milligram, there's 15 grams of sugar and Coke do not have the same chemistry because they're not inhibited. You don't have the fiber slowing them down. All these other things that in many of our more natural foodstuffs, they complicate things. No, we have to simplify it. I mean, let's look again at bread and fiber. You know, most early bread. If you actually tasted most of the early stuff, that stuff was hard. And it was actually a challenge to digest it. And yeah, when people actually talk about fiber and health, the defenders are actually referring to that stuff that is tough. But when most of us think of it, we think that we're talking about white bread, all that tasty stuff. Thank you.
I wish I could run like that.
Start small. We all can.
It'll take me a while. This is fine for me.
Yeah. Yeah. When we think about fiber, we think that, but 98% of the bread we eat is not, as I said, it's super ultra refined. It's got no more fiber. Once again, we look at, well, let's just look at carbs. Carbs usually are just what turns into glucose. Okay. Once again, we'll be like, oh, well, what happens if you eat 30 grams of pancakes?
10:02. Heart rate 125. Average pace
Okay.
10:27.
Looks like we are pretty much on our limit. We're gonna do a little more, just because it seems like an interesting. Oh my God, did I just say flat? No. I'm gonna take away my complainer card. I won't be allowed to complain anymore. Actually, I think it's because there's a lot of cool people out here today, as you noticed. This is good. Things can hurt and still be fun at the same time. So my whole point though is, now with the bread example, if you mix up bread, if you eat, 30 grams of carbohydrates from bread, white bread, then you eat 30 grams of carbohydrate from like the ancient stuff, the stuff that had minimal processing, the stuff that still has damn seeds in it. Well then, suddenly, everything changes. You realize you can look at your blood sugar, but you don't even need that. But yeah, the stuff that is hard to digest, hard to chew, and a challenge, well, that stuff. Yeah, those 30 grams of carbs, just looking up by themselves, don't tell the whole story. The fact that all that chemistry and the less processed stuff just is so much, so different from the, 30 grams of, would be like 4 or 5 slices of white bread. It's even worse for those of us who are addicted to carbs, because I kid you not, that there were times when I would run, and it's not even 5 miles, I forgot. I'm at 4 1/4. But anyway, there were times when I had nothing else, nothing to feed my addiction other than white bread. And I remember that I would get a gallon of milk and an entire loaf of white bread. And I could go through the entire loaf in no time. I mean, I would squish it down, and it was just absolutely like it would just melt. That was how easy it was for me to just go through white bread. Whereas, if you get some of that, like, what is it, the Ezekiel stuff? And that actually is still processed. There's even more natural stuff. Like I said, it tastes like it almost tastes like you're eating bread full of nuts. That stuff will give you a hard time to chew. Not on your health. That stuff, I actually would agree, can be healthy. But in my case, eating all the white bread, oh no, As a matter of fact, I remember having heard that there are some folks who, I don't know if this is true. By the time you see this video, I'll probably correct myself if it's not. But I remember having heard that in Mexico, people would actually use white bread as glue for wallpaper. I imagine because of the starch. How they did it, I don't know. Whether it's true, again, I don't know. I'm sure I will figure it out and update you here, but even if it's untrue, the very fact that it seems plausible is itself an interesting point. So,
All right.
interesting.
Stand.
Thank you.
Oh, I see. That's why they stopped. Yeah, I guess sand would be dangerous. So once again, refinement just really changes things. It doesn't just make it more, give us more of something, because that's obvious, It changes the character, and if the substance can become more toxic, makes it so much more toxic. Carbs, a couple hundred years ago, weren't that bad. But even the things that we consider healthy, we refine the hell out of them. Because when you think about fruits, apples, the apples that we eat today are nothing like the apples that back in the day, before domestication existed. I mean, the monsters that we eat today are bigger, they're softer, and they got many times more sugar. Nevertheless, even that is still, just goes to show you how adaptable as humans we are. That's still pretty healthy in most cases. Now again, I say most cases because there's times when some of us, and that's me, but others too, become addicted to sugar so badly. There was a time when I cut carbs, I cut sugars, I cut everything that could be, and I decided that I was going to be a fruitarian. And so here I am thinking, fruits won't be too bad. I was buying bags of apples every day. A bag of apples. A bag of apples. Which normally, so for many people, again, this also has to do with the way you digest and process carbs. Actually, for many people, a bag of apples would probably be 100% healthy. I mean, as long as you supplement it with other things, but you practically live off of apples. I couldn't. My blood sugar was starting to go up. Yes, I measure it. My weight was going up. But then I was just eating the hell out of it. That's how addicted to sugars I was. I would eat a bag of about 5 pounds of apples. Yes, a bag. if you're wondering, yes, it still hurts. It still hurts to run. So, even though it's an easy one, and there's cool folks, it still hurts. But, so getting back to our original point, many of these things, we've refined them and refined them. And I think at the very least, we should at least take a step back and think honestly about what that refinement is getting us. Sometimes, like I said, in the case of apples and for most oats, maybe it's not that bad. You know, for most people, even though apples are so much sweeter, so much larger, they still appear to have enough fiber and other
Lap
stuff.
6, 9:55. Heart rate 125. Average pace 10:20.
Let me correct my mileage. Oh no, there we are. So it is. Okay. So we're good. There's so many more examples. I can't even imagine more. So let me give you a couple more. Right here.
Most of us know about heroin and the plant it comes from, but few know we've been relying on it as a medicine for at least 5,000 years, if not longer. For most of human history, opium-based medications were used for pain relief, diarrhea, religious rituals, and feel-good medications. The thing is, opium sap was relatively weak, so the risk of abuse was low. It wasn't until the introduction of laudanum as a cough medication that opium refinement became more of a business. Later, people would mix opium with tobacco, and once tobacco was banned, they smoked pure opium and realized the effect was much stronger and more addictive. In 1804, one guy isolated one of the active ingredients of poppies, morphine, and nearly killed himself, 3 young boys, and a dog in the process. Morphine was so popular, it became the major growth vehicle for the drug company Merck. 70 years later, the drug company Bayer discovered that if they modify morphine a bit, it becomes much more powerful and more addictive. Refinement also made the drug more tolerable, which in the world of drugs is very bad, because it means you need to take more of it every time. And most of us are aware of this awful problem every night we see the news. Nevertheless, opioids have their place in medicine, especially as anesthetics. So researchers kept looking for more potent forms, and in 1959, fentanyl was introduced, which was about 50 to 100 times more powerful than morphine, and later, carfentanil was invented, which is up to 10,000 times more powerful. Of course, humans are never satisfied with something being over 9,000 times more powerful, so they invented methoxymetapon, which can be as much as 1 million times more powerful. The problem was that while opium paste had some use as a medicine, all the more refined and modified versions have only very limited use and are otherwise insanely toxic. So in essence, you can still grow your own poppy plants and extract the sap for coughing, pain, and diarrhea. But the modern stuff will probably kill you if you're not careful. Now this doesn't mean refinement is all bad, as we all need good anesthetics, animal tranquilizers, and strong pain relief. We just need to understand that refined substances are not the same thing as their original ingredients. Morphine is not just stronger opium, it's a very different beast. Refined sugar is not the same as what you have in fruits. It's much more powerful and addictive. Cocaine is not just stronger coca tea, nor is refined bread just a little different from the old school chewy and nutty bread. Many modern medicines are the result of refinement, like the diabetic medicine known as metformin, which is an extract of the French lilac and is critical in lowering your blood sugar and losing weight. Aspirin was originally extracted from the willow bark as a fever reducer and rheumatism medicine. Quinine, which has been an important drug for treating malaria, was extracted from the cinchona plant after learning how it reduces the effects of this awful mosquito-borne illness. My point is that refinement has its benefits, but this refinement introduces new dangers of which we must be fully aware. We should not treat refined substances as just more powerful versions of the originals because they are not. In some cases, they are better, but in others, they might not be. Sometimes just going back to the basics may be a better idea. And this is what most of us forget.
Okay. So we have reached 9.2 miles. Ooh. 9.22. My gimbal died, which is why you noticed the previous video is a little more shaky. And this one too. Ran out of battery. Oh well. At least we made it here. Now, let's go ahead and get started with our cool down. Okay, so we just finished our 9 miles and our 2-mile cool down. I just finished it right now. I'm just taking a little seat here because if I walk through everything, it's kind of dark. So just sit here where in front of the cafe and just describe my run. I thought, as you can tell, it seems like it was a pretty successful run. And didn't run too fast, which was good. I think I kept there at 10 minutes. I sped up a little at the end, I know, but still, at least I kept there at the 10 minutes, which is good. It hurt, but the little distraction about talking to you about how we have refined things kind of helped. And the fact that I also talked about how sometimes there are forces that are consistent and that they're always going to be there. And even though they're not super ultra strong, that they do start to become quite significant, like I'm talking about hunger pains and stuff like that. So just keep those things in mind. They're crazy thoughts, I think, but who knows? Maybe they will be useful sometime. Other than that, this was a good week. I did more than 30 miles this week, so that was good. I've made progress in both lifting and running. Those are both good things, so that's good. So what do we do now? Well, get back up and continue our walk, and we get out of here. So, but as always, don't forget to challenge yourself.